just put me in the ground. It's okay to walk away, no need to stick around. When I die, all that's left of me is dust, the crumpled leaves of autumn and the gate that's run with rust. No more petals to capture all that rain. The branches bare and I am gone, I can't feel no pain. And I have lived. Every whisper, every echo in my mind, it's telling me my time will come and it'll be just fine.
All this time I felt this way. All these things I couldn't say. Now I know you're always hurting. Now I know that you are never working on yourself the way you should. change it? Would I been able to change it? Would I been able to change it if I just tried? If I just tried. I am shackled by your ghost. I am shackled by your ghost.
Hi, and welcome back to DBU. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Today we have with us here in the studio Mike Tenenberg, also known as Mike T, and, if I recall, the Barefoot Bard.
Yeah, that's one of them.
So, Mike, tell us how you came about the Barefoot Bard handle. What's that all about?
Well, so the Barefoot Bard thing is literally just I never wear shoes when I perform,
or now
I'm kind of performing, I guess. Yeah. It's performative, and I like to be grounded when I'm singing, so that's why I don't wear shoes. And I have a love of old school comic books, and whenever I make flyers, I always like to make, really intricate painted flyers or whatever, that's just fun homages to different things.
Yeah.
And one of them I did a little homage to an old Jack Kirby comic book cover, and the Barefoot Bard is something, that's the way like Stan Lee wrote when he would write cover tags and everything, like, see the Barefoot Bard up against his greatest challenge. So that's like what I put on the thing, and it just sort of stuck.
That's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because I know you've been using the moniker, but I didn't realize the history behind it. Yeah. So, shifting gears slightly ever closer to music, your favorite pet?
My favorite pet? Like, that I've had?
Yeah.
My favorite idea of what a pet would be?
Yeah, we'll go with that you've had.
Well, I mean, I kind of have to pick the ones I have now, don't I?
I kind of thought that.
Well, I have a very special relationship with Cab, who was the first cat that I got. He unfortunately passed a couple years ago, but he saw me through some really tough times. So I definitely have a very soft spot in my heart always for him. But now my two cats are, I have to say, they're my favorite.
Yeah.
It's not fair not to.
That's so true. Well, so that's one of the things that I find interesting. A second ago you kind of made reference to how Cab, your previous cat, got you through some tough stuff. And having worked with you both here in the studio, and as you know, out in the open mic world, I've gotten to know your music over the last several months. And one of the things that is interesting is that a lot of the songs take on a very dark, really introspective flavor to it. And then hearing you say that the cat, and that experience helped you get through those dark times. What I don't need to know the details of the dark times, but with the cat and the dark times and the dark music, how does a cat contribute to that? That's an interesting thought in my mind. Like how are those things tied together?
Well, so I went through a very messy separation and breakup, and she and I had bought the cat together.
Oh.
And when she left, it was like me and Cab against the world, So him and writing music, helped carry me through all of that stuff. So
emotional support animal.
Yep, 100%.
Oh, fair enough. So shifting from the the oddball questions to what we're here to do today, I happen to know that this is not your first live to 2-track, because we did something very similar to this several months ago. But how was this experience today different than what you've done here in the past, and for that matter elsewhere?
Well, I mean, the number one difference is just the studio itself is insane. Like, if you guys are seeing this, like, it's ridiculous, the studio that you have. And the way that you treat your art as an artist, as opposed to, like, I've recorded with a lot of different people in different studios, and they were all producers, and they were all whatever. And they all had their talents and their quirks that made them fun to work with, or whatever, or not fun to work with in certain instances. But I see you as someone who treats your craft the same way I treat my craft. Like, when I'm working on my songs and you're working on recording the songs, I feel like you're thinking about it in the same way as the musicians who are recording. So that's an interesting dynamic to have. I've never really experienced that with another producer. It's always kind of like more business, more like, okay, let's get the track, even if they're musicians themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's get it recorded, now we have to do this, and now we have to do that. Not so much like, no, I got to get this right, and like, I don't know. So that's sort of been the main difference I've seen with you.
Well, thank you. I mean, that is the madness of being an artist. Unfortunately, last night we were in here, Brandon, whom some of you viewers have seen on previous DBU episodes, but Brandon came over and we spent 3 hours miking up the piano. I've mic'd up pianos, hundreds of times in my career. It's thousands maybe. I don't know. I never really stopped to count. But, we knew we were doing a live to 2-track today that would involve a piano. And usually when I'm miking a piano, I'm just miking the piano. I don't have to worry about leakage coming from 3 feet away. So I had to be a little bit more judicious in mic selection. I can't go throw on my, $15,000 pair of Neumanns or something like that, because they're going to pick up the vocal like it's right there. And we needed some degree of separation. And Brandon had said something to me at the end of the night. He's like, there's not that many guys who are just willing to go that deep into the rabbit hole to figure out the best microphone combination to unlock a piano sound that's going to make their stuff sound great on a YouTube channel that may or may not be watched. So I would kind of beg to differ with that. I'm sure there are people out there that would do it. But I certainly am somebody that takes the craft very seriously, because to me, it's more than a craft. It's a brotherhood, and it's a state of the art, and we're all put here on planet Earth to do something. So we may as well improve our craft and the craft of the rest of the brotherhood and the sisterhood while we're at it. So that's sort of my mentality, and I appreciate your kind words. I hadn't really thought of it like that. So jumping into your music, you have alluded that you've written a lot of stuff before. Where do you end up writing the bulk of your music? When you're writing, what's your physical location? Where do you end up doing it?
Unimportant.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, most of it right now, I'm currently living in a little dinky trailer, so most of it's done in there now. Mm-hmm. But I've written on the beach, I've written out in the woods, I've written randomly in my car, pulled over the... I've literally one time pulled over to the side of the road because I was like, oh, I got this idea for a song. And I just had to get it out then and there. Because that's sort of how my writing process is. I'll percolate on something for a while, and then a time will come where it's just now's the time to write it. So
it's like you're giving birth.
Yeah, so I've pulled over to the side of the road, pulled my guitar out, and sat there and gotten enough down where it was okay, now I kind of know what it is, and recorded it on my phone, and then I get home and finish it. But so wherever it happens, it happens.
So your Desert Island album.
One? I get one.
You just get one. That's why it's called the Desert Island album.
Yeah, but usually it's top 5.
Who gets to put that in their suitcase? You're lucky to get one.
Well, these days I can get 100.
Well, that's true. When the plane goes down, I didn't know it was going to go down.
Desert Island 1. That's really tough.
It is. It's meant to be tough.
And the other thing is, my favorite album, well, I'll never have one. It's always going to be a rotating list.
Yeah, I know
But one album for sure that I could never get sick of listening to, that comes to mind kind of immediately, is Shoots Too Narrow by the Shins.
I haven't heard it.
It's phenomenal. They're basically like, what if the Beatles made music in the early 2000s?
Wow.
They're just so good at their harmonies. James Mercer, who's the lead singer, has a phenomenal voice. The way he orchestrates music, his lyrics, just everything about it. And that's an album that, from start to finish, is solid. There's not a weak song on that album.
Well, I have to listen to it. I don't know how it's escaped me.
Yeah, the Shins got, like, they sort of exploded for a brief period of time when New Slang was on Garden State. Everyone's heard that song. It's
Okay.
And that song got super huge, and everyone was like, oh, and then they just sort of disappeared again. And then James Mercer did work with Modest Mouse, like he worked with them on an album right after they got big and sort of blew up, but they've always sort of operated on the periphery. But they're just phenomenal.
So that's one I'll have to look up, because I didn't know about it.
Yeah. If I had a second choice slide in there, it might be Paranoid Android by Radiohead.
Okay.
Because that's also...
I was listening to that, actually, today, on my walk.
Is that OK
Well,
Computer?
no, but yeah, it's OK Computer.
OK Computer is the album.
I knew what you
Paranoid
meant.
Android is the song.
Well, that in my mind, when Radiohead put that record out, it spoke to me. I mean, because originally they had Pablo Honey, which was okay. It kind of got them a little bit of recognition. And then, of course, they came out with the Bends.
Right.
And I'm blanking on the name of the producer. I want to say it's John Leckie, but I think he's actually the guy in the band, not the producer. But the guy that produced it did a lot of stuff for EMI, like a lot of stuff.
Right.
He was a really well-known producer, and he had a way of getting a great sound. And that record from start to finish is just really, really good. And certainly in the 90s, it was one of my favorite records.
And it's one of those things where you listen to it, and like you're saying, from the producing to the writing to everything about it, it's like, oh, you can make music like this?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Seriously. Yeah, and then, but that was so strange, is that it's all of a sudden go from the Bends to OK Computer, where they make this left turn, and you're just like, this isn't the same. Like, this is nowhere near. They sort of pulled a U2, but even crazier. Because, like, U2 never really got too far from their roots. Yeah. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that, as Bono admits, they're a garage band. And they have Brian Eno help them not be a garage band. But Radiohead, I don't know what they did. You know, they just went off the rails.
I think they let Tom York play.
there you go. That could be it.
That's what happened. They were like, okay, you've made some popularity for yourself. What do you got?
What do you got now?
Like, do whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay.
Well,
game.
I loved OK Computer, and then they came out with Amnesiac after that. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that record in particular. A couple of closing questions. So, thoughts on the open mic situation in San Diego?
Oh, man. So the open mic situation in San Diego is that it is packed with talent. Like, it's insane. When I first started, because I first started playing in open mics in San Diego, Encinitas specifically, when I was 16, 17, and I would say that it was 80%, okay, what are you doing on stage, buddy? And 20% like, oh, that guy's pretty good. And now it's like 90%, holy crap, that's a great artist, and 10% like, oh, you'll get there, buddy. Like, it's insane how many phenomenal artists are out there now in San Diego. And, like, I'm just talking about North County. I haven't experienced, like, the wider area of San Diego, but North County, San Diego just has phenomenal talent. phenomenal
I'm
talent.
certainly beginning to see it, having gone out and participated in the open mic scene, and of course, even doing this back to 2-track thing that we're doing here, bringing undiscovered artists into the studio to kind of help them hone something on the spot. We're not even going through the process of pre-production. It's just like, okay, the songs sound good. And you're right, it is amazing. There's definitely a very large talent pool out there. So then the last question, worst gig ever?
Oh, jeez. So I played at, I think it used to be called Cane's, down in, it's like downtown San Diego. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was right next to, it's like a little roller coaster, and I can't even remember what the place is called. But we played this like Battle of the Bands, and it was a 2-story venue, and like the band before us started like moshing basically at the end of their set and knocked
Great.
over a lighting rig, which broke a table and like smashed a thing. And like we had to go on this like broken stage right after them with like no downtime.
Oh no.
And like half the sound didn't even work. It was just
disaster.
It was just a mess. And I remember at the time going like, this is rock and roll. But as far as the performance itself, it was probably the worst
Wow.
performance. I haven't really had too many bad experiences with gigs. I don't know. I guess I'm pretty easygoing, but that was probably the worst, like,
Okay.
overall.
I'll buy that.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounded very... It sounded like you were there, man.
Yeah. It was one of those moments you're like, okay, this is it.
Unreal. Well, in closing, any last stuff you want to tell the viewers and your fans?
If you want, you can follow me on Mike Blank Music. All words, no symbols, no spaces, at Instagram. And, yeah, I just, keep making music, all you great musicians out there in San Diego.
Well, I guess that kind of wraps up the interview. As I said, you and I could probably go on for a while, but thank you for coming and participating in this process. The music sounds great, and as usual, it's inspiring to hear someone get up on a mic and just sing with that kind of power behind their voice. So I appreciate you coming in and doing this.
Well, thanks for having me, man.
Not a problem. Thank you. And thank you guys in YouTube land. We appreciate you coming and being supportive of the channel. Again, please subscribe. Thanks for watching. And until next time, cheers.